This diagram illustrates a common human instinct, the belief that following a set of rigid, perfectly executed rules provides a clear path to worthiness. We often rely on these structures to create a sense of order in a world that feels chaotic. Centuries ago, deep in the dense forests of South India, that pursuit of order lived within a forgotten stone temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. Every morning, a temple priest arrived at this isolated shrine to perform his duties. He cleansed the stone lingam with sacred water, arranged flowers in precise patterns, and recited Vedic chants with technical perfection, ensuring not a single syllable was out of place. In the priest's worldview, devotion was a quantifiable result of these actions. He believed that the divine was accessed exclusively through the flawless execution of external ancient traditions. But that carefully maintained order vanished one morning. The priest arrived to find the lingam covered in mud and a slab of raw meat resting at its base. To the priest, this was an act of intentional vandalism. He saw only the filth on the stone, interpreting the presence of meat as a direct and malicious insult to the deity. Day after day, the pattern repeated. The priest would spend hours scrubbing the shrine and restoring its purity, only to return the next morning and find the same muddy offering of flesh and forest debris. This recurring cycle pushed the priest into a crisis. An unknown force was consistently ignoring his rules of sanctity, forcing him to confront the possibility that his definitions of sacred were being systematically dismantled. The person responsible for this was a tribal hunter named Thinnan. He lived outside the boundaries of formal religion, knowing nothing of the priest's scriptures or the laws governing the temple. When Thinnan first encountered the stone icon, he didn't see a philosophical concept. He saw a lonely figure abandoned in the elements. He felt a deep instinctual empathy, assuming the deity was hungry and in need of a companion. He lacked the vessels and rituals of the priest, so he used the tools of a hunter. He brought the best meat from his kills, and because his hands were full, he carried water in his mouth to bathe the stone. He used his feet to sweep away the forest floor, simply because it was the only way he could reach the altar. This creates a startling paradox. The exact same actions that the priest identified as a hateful desecration were, from Thinnan's perspective, the most practical and sincere ways to provide care for someone he loved. The priest, exhausted by the repeated attacks on his temple, wept and prayed for an explanation. That night, Shiva appeared in his dream with a single command. The deity told the priest to abandon his assumptions and hide behind a tree the next morning. He was told to stop watching the rituals and start watching the heart of the person performing them. As the sun rose, the priest watched from the shadows. Thinnan arrived as usual, approaching the stone with an obvious, joyful affection that the priest had never considered. Suddenly, without any warning, dark blood began to pour directly from one of the eyes carved into the stone lingam. This crisis instantly rendered the priest's chants and the hunter's meat irrelevant. It forced both men to face a situation that couldn't be solved by following a handbook, testing whether their devotion could survive a moment of genuine, high-stakes pain. Thinnan was gripped by panic. He scrambled through the brush, crushing medicinal forest herbs and pressing them against the stone to stop the bleeding, but nothing worked. In a moment of absolute clarity, the hunter realized that if the deity had lost an eye, the only logical solution was to provide a replacement. He took a sharp arrow from his quiver, plucked out his own eye, and pressed it onto the bleeding stone. The bleeding stopped the moment the sacrifice was made. By giving up his own sight to heal the stone, Thinnan effectively ended the distinction between himself and the deity. He had moved beyond the act of offering food to the act of offering his very existence. But the test continued. Immediately after the first eye was healed, the second eye on the lingam began to bleed. Thinnan was prepared to give again, but he realized a practical problem. If he removed his remaining eye, he would be blind and unable to see where to place it on the stone. He took his bare foot and placed it firmly on the bleeding spot of the lingam. By using his foot as a physical marker, he ensured he could find the wound even after he lost his sight. As he raised the arrow a second time, the forest filled with light. Shiva manifested, caught Thinnan's hand and instantly restored both of his eyes. Shiva named him Kannappa, the one who gave his eyes, and granted him eternal liberation. The priest, witnessing this, bowed to the hunter. The diagram of their two paths shows a clear distinction. The priest's complex web of rituals creates an impressive structure, yet never reaches the core. The pathways dissolve, leaving a single direct line. The priest's visible perfection was tradition. Kannappa's invisible intent was life.